It's totally devastating. It is absolutely crushing to know that Caitlin Clark is not going to play in the WNBA All-Star game that is being played in Indianapolis. It's devastating. I mean, there's no other way to describe it. She's dealt with injuries most of the first half of the year, and now another injury is going to keep her sidelined for what was the WNBA's biggest stage ever to showcase their league, their young talent, and now Caitlin Clark's not going to be able to play. What a bummer. Of course, the Indiana Fever pretty much had no chance against the New York Liberty without Caitlin Clark, plus trying to play two games back to back, Tuesday and Wednesday night. What a ridiculous thing for the league to even put on the Fever. They get beat by 21 points by arguably the best team in the league. I know you could argue that Minnesota is better because they've got a better record, but those are 1 and 2. Minnesota 20 and 4 now, and the New York Liberty 15 and 6. So take your pick, which one you truly think is better. I think on most nights, I think head to head, I would favor the Liberty over the Lynx. But Nafisa Collier's been terrific so far this year for Minnesota. But this really is crushing. I mean, the whole reason the game is in Indianapolis, and you've got the mural on the side of the JW Marriott, is because this is Caitlin Clark's game. They gave it to the city that got the phenom. So it would be almost like the Taylor Swift concert when it came to Indianapolis. It's like the biggest showcase, the biggest game, and unfortunately, it's not going to happen. And it's very disappointing. And I asked the question earlier today on Twitter. Caitlin Clark was noticeably stronger, physically broader in the shoulders, just a little bit of a thicker body. I mean, not that she was girthy at all, but she clearly went through some physical transformation between her rookie year and her second year this season. And I asked the question, is that transformation what's causing all these injuries? I mean, sometimes you get a body that is wired a certain way and you try to change that wiring and it just doesn't work. And I wonder, is that the problem with Caitlin Clark? Would these injuries have happened if she just would have stuck with the same frame she had? But the other part is she had to build that frame because she realized teams were going to play her physical and she wanted to be able to handle it. But it's even worse than you could have ever expected. Caitlin Clark is being bullied, and the WNBA officials are letting it happen. I mean, you go through the tape, and it's just embarrassing. And it's not just Caitlin Clark. The entire Indiana Fever is being bullied. And this is an excuse because I could care less about wins, losses, or anything. This is just facts of watching games, watching the physical play against the Indiana Fever. They've kind of built a finesse roster because they wanted to find players that could run the floor and shoot the three. And a lot of times those players are not your big, strong post type players. Those are going to be the players that may be a little thinner, that might be a little more frail. God bless Sophie Cunningham for standing up for Caitlin Clark's defense when she needed somebody to step up. But I mean, there's some other choices on the team I would have liked to have seen come to Caitlin Clark's aid, but they didn't. Had to be Sophie Cunningham, who played security guard for Caitlin Clark. But the bottom line is the Indiana Fever are getting bullied around. I mean, what the heck? A total takedown in the low post against Aaliyah Boston, and you don't even go to the monitor? I mean, when you've got a player as big as Aaliyah Boston and she gets thrown down like a rag doll, you've got to go look at it. You can't be that asinine to watch a player go down like that and not think, maybe that was a little excessive. I mean, the WNBA officials are ruining a great game. And I mean, this comes all the way from the WNBA commissioner through the officials, because somebody's got to step up and be held accountable for it. I mean, not throwing Marina Mabry out of the game when she comes up and just bum rushes and checks Caitlin Clark to the deck from her blind side, not throwing her out of the game sends a message to the entire league. Hey, wow, they're kind of letting us get away with some stuff on Caitlin Clark. And now you've got Sheldon, JC Sheldon, I think it is, throwing out a leg to kind of get a leg around Caitlin Clark. And I mean, there's all kinds of physical contact. There was an elbow thrown into Sophie Cunningham. And I mean, you got to put the stops to it. You got to call the fouls that are the fouls. Because the other thing that's happening in the WNBA is the game is getting unwatchable. It's becoming so physical that players can't score, players are missing layups. I mean, nothing for me is more frustrating than watching a game where they can't dunk, but yet they can't make layups either. And I'm like, if you can't dunk it, you better darn well make every layup you get. And because you got to finish. You got to finish at the rim. And right now in the WNBA, I've watched far too many players miss layups, some of them open layups. And I'm like, you know what? The three-point shot is sexy. I mean, that is something that makes the highlights. People love to see the three-point shooters. But the reality is, you got to make your layups. Those are the most important free 2 points you're going to get. And also at free throw line, you got to make it free throws. Told my son when he grew up, got to make layups and free throws before you ever worry about your three-point shot. Three-point shots are great when you've got a final possession and you're down by 3, need a three-pointer, or maybe you're down by 2 and want to go for the win. But the reality is you're looking to attack the basket. If you get to the rim, you can't give up those points. And so he was pounded into his brain. Layups and free throws are what wins and loses games. If you go through the possessions and look at all the possessions throughout the course of a game, people aren't going to shoot great from 3, and so those you kind of toss out. But the key is, are you making 80 or 90% of your layups, and are you making 75% of your free throws? That's where you're going to have the game decided. And so it's become a game that's not as entertaining as it should be because of the physical play, especially against a team that is more of a finesse team like the Indiana Fever. And Caitlin Clark, the injuries, is it because of physical play, or is it because she tried to build up her body to withstand the physical play, and it's made her body vulnerable to muscle strain because of the physical work that she gave her body during the offseason trying to build up strength and build up bulk? What do you think? Let us know in the comments. We'd love to hear your thoughts. You can leave your comment right here on the video. But before you do that, be sure you subscribe. We need to get you to subscribe to this channel. So many people are watching it, but so few are actually clicking the subscribe button. What are you afraid of? You're not going to get hit with a bunch of emails. It doesn't pass along any kind of secret information. I don't get your phone number or where you live. None of that. Nothing. But we've been taught by society to avoid commitment online. Because as soon as you click a button, somebody's going to learn something about you. You know what? I don't. I mean, you click that button and all it says is, I got one more subscriber. And it doesn't mean much for you either, because you've got to click that little bell to get the alerts, and it will give you a section you can go to look at the most recent videos from the people you subscribe to. But ultimately, it's just a kind thing to do, and it's completely free. There's no obligation. Just click the button and subscribe. And then also you want to make sure to give us that thumbs up. We want to get your likes, and be sure you share the channel. That is also a very kind thing to do, to recommend the channel to your friends on social media, especially those sports fans, and primarily the ones that follow Indiana sports or Northeast Indiana sports. By the way, speaking of Northeast Indiana sports, got to tell you a great story. Today I was out at Purdue Fort Wayne, was checking on the progress for the schedule. And I know that that's something that this time of year, it's usually getting pretty close to getting finalized. And they're starting to get into the neighborhood where they're finalizing some contracts and everything like that. And it's not quite ready yet, but I'm hoping that Coach Kaufman agrees to come on here to make his schedule release announcement. We'll find out. But the bottom line is, I went over to campus and happened to run into Yuval Levin. He told me how to pronounce it. I should remember. It was only a few hours ago. Yuval Levin, and very nice young man out of Israel. We chatted for a little bit. I measured him up, knowing how tall I was, how tall he was. I have heard any report from 6'8" to 6'9", and I looked at him and I said, "You're not a full 6'9". I'm not even sure you really are a full 6'8". I told him, I said, "I'll give you 6'7.5". And he kind of smiled. He goes, "Yeah, kind of in that round there." So I think I'm going to call him 6'7.5", regardless of what they put on that roster. Because I've had guys on that roster that also tell me they weigh 10, 15 pounds different than what the roster said. Either they've bulked up or they've trimmed down. And I go with what they tell me, because I think if someone's listening to the game, they're not looking at the roster and they need to know what the accurate size of the player is. So to me, Yuval Levin is a 6'7.5" 3-man. And I asked him, I said, "Okay, so tell me what your position is, because I've heard you described as everything from a point guard to a possible 5-man." And he goes, "How about a 3?" I do a terrible Israeli accent. He said he's a 3, very definitively. And I said, "Oh." And he goes, "Well, I could play the 2 or the 4, but I prefer the 3." Okay, so now we know. He was to play small forward. And so, great. He said he likes the 2. He would prefer the 3 over the 4, but he would be willing to play some 4. I asked him about the 5, and I got a little bit of a indifferent look. Kind of like, I'll do what the coach asked me to do, but that's not where I'm most comfortable. And at 6'7.5", I get it. But speaking of the 5, he was with Quincy Morgan, another freshman, who's more of a true freshman, because Yuval is 20 or 21 years old. He's either 20 and turning 21, or he just turned 21, but he's a little bit of an older freshman because he's played a few years of professional ball over in Israel. But Quincy Morgan is out of Virginia, true freshman, and this kid is a true 6'9". I mean, there was no question. I looked up at him, and I had to really look up. He is 6'9". He's working on about 208 to 210 pounds right now, and hopes to be 215 plus by the time the season starts. And I think that would be ideal for him. If he can be 215 plus, he'll be fine, because he's kind of got those long arms, wiry type of build. He doesn't have to be a guy that ends up being 225, 230. They got Darius Duffy for that. This guy could be more of that, wiry, a lot of length, blocking shots. And I don't know the depth at center, where he will fit in, because you do have D'Angelo Elise returning. You've got Darius Duffy, who's transferred in at the 5. You've got Ibrahim. Ibrahim has, what is it, Kaba? Ibrahim Kaba has come in from St. Bonaventure, and he's going to be a guy that could guard a 5-man if somebody's playing a 5 like Youngstown State did last year. So I don't know exactly how that will work out yet. I don't know if the Dons know, because I asked them and they said, yeah, they've gotten a little on the court, but a lot of things they're doing right now are to create some culture and some bond off the court. Today I heard they were going to have their cooking school, where they all learn to cook for themselves, and what is good stuff to cook, what's bad stuff to cook, how do you cook it, how do you know if your meat's ready. All the little stuff about young men learning to survive on their own And the Mastodons provide cooking class. They're going through yoga classes. So, but I had a chance to talk to those guys. Kind of fun, hanging out with them a little bit. It's kind of a dead day in sports, other than the Open Championship, the British Open. It is in Northern Ireland, so it's one of the more gloomier settings where you see a lot of gray skies. Then you saw some pretty significant rain today, but a lot of guys sitting right in that par to one under, two under, that range. There's a few that move past the field to four under, but keep an eye out for guys like McIlroy sitting in there. You know, the guy that I feel at some point has has got to get it together. I mean, how many tournaments is he going to be in where he's on the leaderboard, he's competing among the leaders all the way up until somewhere late in the tournament, and then something happens, and he ends up sliding because uh, you know when you get to this point. Well, Lee Westwood is one guy. I remember joking. Scott Pieri, one of our favorite local guys, a golf professional that teaches golf. I remember talking to him, making picks 7, 8 years ago, and every tournament, every major, I would pick Lee Westwood to win. I said it's going to happen. He's going to break through. Well, here we are, 8 years later, and Westwood still doesn't have a win. He's still appearing in the top of the leaderboard. Here he is at two under. He's right in the thick of things. But back to my other guy, Shane Lowry has been the Lee Westwood of this decade. Seems like Shane Lowry is always right there. Somebody you're talking about through Saturday, somebody that you might see a little bit of on TV on Sunday, and then something happens and he fades away and finishes maybe top five, maybe sixth or seventh, but you know he's right there in the mix, real close. But he's very consistent because it doesn't matter what type of course, what type of course conditions. He seems to always be a guy that competes, but he can't win it. And so I don't know. Let's take a look at the leaderboard. Who do you like in the Open Championship? Let us know on the comments. Scott Scheffler, Scotty is three under, and he's only one shot off the lead. It's hard not to put a little something something on Scotty just because. Just because. Terrell Hatton has had a good run. He is at three under. Ricky Fowler had a two under 69 today. He's two shots off the pace. Justin Rose got it to two under late in his round. Phil Mickelson is one under. John Rahm is one under. Some of those guys we don't see a whole lot because they're on the Live Tour. Sergio is one under. And as he said, Rory at one under, Tony Finau at one under, and Xander Schauffele leads the field at even par. But it's great with the extended daylight hours in Northern Ireland. That's what I was mentioning. They're way up north, so it's gloomy, it's gray, a lot of rain, but a lot of daylight. I mean, they only have like 4 or 5 hours of darkness. And so from first crack of dawn here in the States to well into late afternoon, almost into the evening, we're watching golf from across the pond. Hey, let me know what you want us to talk about on our next show. We got a live one coming up this weekend. And I don't know, there's not a lot going on. Baseball will return this weekend. We talked about the baseball all-star game. We've talked about the Fever. We've talked about the Pacers. We've talked about Miles Turner. Colts will be starting in another, week? Next week, they'll be reporting. So there'll be a lot to talk about there. I think one of the things we got to get to maybe this weekend is who do you think will be the starting quarterback? Because the news broke today that Anthony Richardson is throwing. Now, I don't know to what significance or how hard he's going to push it. But do you believe that the Colts are setting up for Anthony Richardson to be their starting quarterback? it's kind of interesting that you end up with Daniel Jones and Anthony Richardson, two guys that Colts fans would never have wanted, and yet the entire hopes of this season rest on one of those two guys. It really does. Quarterback's the most important position in football. One of those guys has to step up and be huge, and it's Daniel Jones and Anthony Richardson. I mean, I don't even know if I care about all the other positions we've talked about here during the offseason that the Colts have to improve or that the Colts need to find someone. I don't know if it even matters because the most important position you have to have and have to take care of to be a good NFL team is quarterback. I'm not sure the Colts have it. So we'll see what happens. All right, got to wrap it up. Hope everybody has a great Thursday night. Look forward to talking to you again on the weekend. If you've got it in your heart, please subscribe. Otherwise, you're heartless. Subscribe to the channel. Give us that thumbs up. Share the channel with your friends. And make sure you click the bell so you get the alerts when we go live like we will this weekend for another edition of the